Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. How are you all? I hope you all are doing well in this COVID situation. Let me introduce myself. I am Jigartullah. I have 4 plus years of experience with Laravel. Currently, I am working with Endurance International Group. That's all about me. This is the first time that we are going live with YouTube. I hope you guys will enjoy this experience. And due to this COVID situation, I am we are planning to go continue this YouTube session as is. So every month going forward. So let's get started with our sessions without wasting any time. Okay, because we have two big sessions that are coming up, and I am excited about that. Hope you guys are as well. So first session will be taken by Siddarth Kumar. He has total 4 years of experience in Laravel. He is an ex-CTO of Centillion. Currently, is an independent technology consultant and content creator. His hobbies are ideating, coding, and playing games. Let's catch up sometimes offline to play games. Even I enjoy playing games. Today, he will be speaking on tinkering with Laravel Jetstream. So, enjoy the session. Feel free to interrupt him if you have any doubts. I will be seeing you all again soon after this session around 5. Over to you, Siddharth.
All right, amazing. Thanks. Thank you so much, Jigar, for
Yeah.
this great opportunity. Yeah, I hope all of you all are doing well in this unprecedented times. So Laravel, with the release of Laravel 8, we see that Taylor has released new package of sorts, and we've been hearing a lot of buzz around the word Jetstream a lot, right? And so I decided that I'll go through the Jetstream documentation, probably try to set it up, see what it takes to set this up on a brand new application, and we'll try to modify a few existing components and see what Jetstream is and what it is not, right? So there's a lot of confusion in the community about, uh, is it going to replace my existing authentication scaffolding? Do I need to upgrade to Jetstream? Is it a compulsion, right? So we look at all of those things, and you guys can feel free to interrupt me if at all I'm not audible, or if you need to ask any question in between, right? Hi Suraj, you guys please feel free to put comments on YouTube. I'll be responding to comments as and when I see them, right? Jigar, if you could just allow the view to share my screen, I would like to get started. Yeah.
Sure. There is a share screen button below. Yeah.
Yeah. So first things first, we're going to wrap up a new Laravel application, right? And we're going to see how the installation looks like. So I'm going to open up my terminal. I hope you guys can see my terminal. First thing is we need to see what sort of dependencies do we need for working with Jetstream, right? So I'm going to first off show you my configuration. So I'm running PHP 7.4, I think. Yeah, so I'm running PHP 7.4. Running Composer, I think it's 1.4. We'll just wait. Yeah, I'm running Composer 1.6. And yeah, so step one to install Jetstream is by using the Laravel command, right? So you can do stuff like Laravel new, let's call it rocket, let's say, and you have to use the flag --jet, right? If you're in an old version of Laravel installer, you will not be able to run this command, right? So I recently had to upgrade my Laravel installer to be able to use the --jet command. A quick note on how to do that, right? What you can do is you can quickly do Composer global remove Laravel -installer. Yeah. So let me just, I will not execute this command. I'll just copy this. Yeah, just copy this command and save it in a doc so that I can share it with you at the end of the session. So step one is for upgrading your Laravel installer, right? That's the prerequisite, right? So upgrade your Laravel installer. You can remove it, and then if you re-require the same thing, that will get you to the latest version. So you just require, and then this should get you to the latest version of Laravel installer. Okay. Now, once you do that, you can run this command. Um, I'll write it again. Uh, Laravel new rocket hyphen jet. Now, this hyphen jet flag allows you to allows you to install Jetstream with the new version of Laravel. So I'm going to press enter. It's asking me two options, livewire or inertia. I'm going for the purpose of this stream, I'm going to keep this session with livewire, yeah, because I don't think we'll have the time to cover inertia as well. So I'm entering 0. Once you enter 0, it's going to ask me, do you need to use Teams? Yes, we want to see what Teams is all about. So we'll write yes. And then, hi Pushpak. And then we'll wait for this to get started, right? So this might generally take some time, depending on your internet connection or your configuration. So we'll give it the time it takes to install. Let's meanwhile talk about what Jetstream is, right? So Jetstream Jetstream is basically an application scaffolding, okay, and it has the following components out of the box. It has registration, it has login, it has email verification, two-factor authentication, session management, API management, and team management, right? What is Jetstream not? Jetstream is not a mandate, right? It's just a great starting point to your new Laravel application. You do not need to upgrade your existing auth setup, or it's not compulsory to refactor your code to accommodate Jetstream, right? It's just a great starting point for a new Laravel application, and uh, and that's about it. So it has some new features which you're not used to, which we've not seen in the past. We've not seen something known as two-factor authentication. We've not seen something known as team management, right? All of that comes out of the box with Jetstream. So we'll wait. Meanwhile, we'll wait for the scaffolding to get done. And once that gets done, I'm going to open this up in Visual Studio Code, and we'll see how to get started with that, right? Jetstream comes with something known as Fortify, and there's a lot of confusion between what's Jetstream, what's Fortify, and we'll cover all of that in a moment. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly wait for the scaffolding to be complete. All right. Okay, how is it different from existing scaffolds like Voyager? Okay, Voyager is more like an admin panel. This is a question by Mufaddal. Voyager is a admin panel tool. It lets you create admin panels, and Jetstream is not about that. Jetstream gives you a great starting point for just authentication, and it's got nothing to do with creating your own CRUDs. I've not used Infiom scaffold, so I don't know what that does. Yeah, but yeah, this is definitely Voyager and Jetstream are two different things. We'll see Jetstream in action, and I think that will answer most of the questions, right? So yeah, okay. It seems like my laptop has woken up and started installing everything. There you go. So I think, yes, I think my setup is done. Next, what we'll do is we'll open our current code base in VS Code. And how we're going to do that is first we're going to cd into our directory. So if you remember, I have created a new application and I'm calling it Rocket. Yeah. We'll wait for it to give me control, and should be any moment now. All right. Jetstream version is 1.3. Okay. And we'll also have to create a new database, all of which I'm going to do with VS Code. So we'll give that a minute. So let me take this time to talk about Fortify. I think it's taking time, right? So what's Fortify? So Fortify is a front-end agnostic back-end authentication. You could call it a package, which is leveraged by Jetstream. You can use Fortify with any front end. You can use Fortify with any front end library. You don't need to sort of tie it to Vue.js. Right now we see Laravel using a lot of Vue.js. Yeah, you don't need to use Vue.js or or any other front end library. Fortify is purely a backend package. So front end agnostic means it's independent of what the front end technology is, and and it allows you to sort of you know take care of things. Yeah, Composer 2 would have been really faster. I'm on the old version of Composer, so um, yeah, I mean, so that could be a thing. Very well pointed out by Jigar. Yeah. Um, okay, so I think we are on the last steps. Yeah, I think we're in the last steps, and hopefully we should be able to see Visual Studio Code soon. Right. So we'll. So what we plan to do is we plan to see how to change the existing scaffolds. We will not be able to play around with all the scaffolds, but I'll probably try my best to, look at whatever's possible in the provided time slot. Yeah. Great. So Abhishek is saying something. All right. Use Hierarch slash Prestissimo. Okay. I'll look that up, Abhishek. Right. Meanwhile, I'll just make a note of the dependencies that I'm using for this session. Right. So yeah. So I'm just going to make a note of the dependencies. I'm just going to write these are my dependencies. Okay. I'm using PHP. That's 7.4.9 that we saw. And Composer, I have 1.6.5. Create to 2.x. Laravel installer, I have 4.0.3. And Laravel is 8.x. X. And Jetstream is, oh my God, 1.0.3. Right? Let's see if it's done. Done. Okay, great. Great. So next, since our application scaffolding is done, let's open this in code, right? So let's do cd rocket, okay, and let's open this in code. Hopefully the code opens up on my side. Great, code opens up on my side. Can you build SPA or PWA application with Jetstream? You could build anything actually. Jetstream has nothing to do with if you can build PWAs or not. You can build a PWA. PWA relies more on following, standards given out by Google. Like they need to be, your application needs to be offline capable, and all of that. You could, it's independent of what Jetstream does. Single page application, yes. So to answer your question, Mohammed, yes, you could do all of that. Right. So now since we've great. So now since we're done with the installation, let's try to start this application. Before starting this application, you're going to need to we need a database, right? So I'm just going to create a new database. So let me just log in real quick. There you go. Let me just bring this up. Create. Let's call the database name same. We'll call it Rocket as well, right? All right, it's done. So let's get out of um, SQL. Let's set up, the next step is to setting up your env, right? So a database name is by default the project name, so we don't need to change this, right? We just need to add your super secret password. Okay. Once you do that, your ports are fine, host is fine. Just save this, right? And then what you can do is, then you can do the next step that's called PHP Artisan Serve. Yeah. To do PHP Artisan Serve, you can just type it. I'm going to use an extension which I've already installed. I use it to start my servers. Yeah. Um, and once you do that, it'll ask you for the host name. It'll ask you for a port. And I want it on the default port, right? And it'll start my application server. So let's open this up in Chrome. All right. So let me bring this up here. So the first thing that we see at this moment is, that my tables don't exist. That's because I have not migrated any tables. So hold on, let me just bring this here. Yeah, so the first thing that we see is that my tables are not migrated. I can run migrations from here directly. I prefer to do it with my terminal. So I'm going to stop my server, going to migrate real quick. So my migrations are done, and we can type PHP artisan serve. And when we refresh, all right. So you see we have our homepage has changed drastically. If you want to look at the old Laravel page, the layout has changed, the styles have changed, right? A lot has changed. Yeah. Concurrent installing of packages. All right, great. Speeds up downloads. Thank you so much, Suraj. Thanks, Abhishek. Great. So now the main part of Jetstream, let's try to look at login and registration. They are these nicely hidden things on the top right. I'm sure you can't see them. So let's look at login, right? So this is our login page. This is the auth scaffolding I was talking about that comes with Jetstream. And you have a registration page. Yeah. Great. So, so first off, let's register a user. Okay, so I'm going to register myself, my name, my email, a very secure password. Has to be secure. And this is my dashboard, right? So this is nothing new. It looks like some version of homepage as well, but the real features of Jetstream are in the profile. So you click on your profile, and then you see this drop down, right? This is new. This is all new. So let's go to profile. So once you go to profile, you see you have an option to add a new photo, change your name, change your email. You can update your current password. This is nice. You can enable two-factor authentication. It shows browser sessions, and browser sessions was really impressive when I first saw it. I mean, all of this is out of the box, and you have an option to delete your account. Right now, when you have these GDPR rules come into picture, where you need data deletion and all that, right? Delete account is a very crucial feature that is a part of your application. So I think these are all the essentials that you need when you have sort of like account management as a functionality in any project, right? So Laravel really goes out of the way to make sure that your initial developer experience is amazing. Like, I mean, when you look at initial scaffolds from other frameworks, most of them probably give you like a hello world page, right? But when you have Jetstream, which comes with Laravel, um, I mean, pretty impressive, right? A lot of, and I'm not even scratching the surface. There's more things like APIs and teams, which we'll cover, right? So let's go through these features, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to open my localhost URL in a different browser. Okay, so let me just open it in Firefox. Give it a minute. And great. So I've tried to open up Firefox, and let me log in from that account as well, so that we can see the session update. Um, you know, session update from browsers. I have now logged in from Firefox, and as soon as I refresh the session here, you see that a second session has been added of Firefox, right? Last active 5 seconds ago. I mean, how impressive is that, right? All right. Next, let's look at two-factor authentication. This was very impressive when I saw this. So all you have to do is click on enable, right? And then it'll ask me for my password, which is very good. Let me enter my password, right? Next, what you see is we see a QR code and we see our recovery keys in case we lose anything. So we're not going to bother about the recovery keys. And what do we do, right? So I have this app installed on my phone. It's called Authenticator. Let me just increase the zoom a little bit. Yeah. So it's called Authenticator. It's a free app available in Play Store. It's by Google, right? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to open my Authenticator app, okay, Authenticator on my phone, and I'm going to scan this. Okay, and then let's see what happens. Okay, delete this, delete my old one, right? So if you see my phone, I'm clicking on scan QR, and I'm scanning. Okay, great. I've scanned it, and it's saved the authentication, right? Right. All I need to do is to see this in action. I just need to log out and log in again. So let me log out. Okay, and let me log in again. Okay, enter my details. And now that two-factor authentication was enabled, it's asking me for a confirmation code, which I have on my application right here, on my mobile application. Okay, so the code is, right? And that's how I get access. Sweet, right? I had to write 0 lines of code to implement authentication, right? Thanks, Shashank. Yeah. So, so there we go, right? So we see, so when we look at profile, we had enabled two-factor authentication, and it was asking us for, it was asking us for our authentication code, right? We've seen managed sessions, yeah, and we have a really nice UI to change the password. Let's test out the photo. Let's see how quick photo is, right? So let's select a new photo. Let me try to change it. I already have an icon downloaded for this session. And there you go. This was instant, right? Obviously, it will not work if you see the one on the top right. It's still not updated. I need to click save for it to update. Okay. And here's when you'll see a quick bug, right? And we'll talk about this bug and we'll see how to fix it. So as you press save, give it a minute, you will see this broken image here. This is by default, and this can be a rookie mistake. Yeah. So when we look at session drivers by default, Bhushan, I think we've not changed anything. I think it's database at the moment or file. I'll check and answer your question. So by default, we don't see the photo update, right? So what's wrong? Let's open up our console, yeah, and then I can tell you what's the problem. So as soon as you open up the console, let's go to console, right? And then we see a name not resolved issue. And as soon as you hover on top of it, I mean, I'm sure you can't see it. But the problem is the URL that it's using rocket.test. So rocket is my project name.test. So it's assuming that I'm using Valet, and that's why there's a whole problem, right? How do we fix this, right? All you have to do is go to your env, and you have something known as app URL. Right. So at the moment, my app URL is localhost 8000, right? And here the app URL is rocket.test. All you have to do is update this to localhost 8000. And I think that should do the trick. So let's just save this. Once you save this, make sure your environment has restarted. And then all you need to do is take a refresh. And voila, your image bug is fixed. Yeah. So that's one gotcha which I faced when I was setting this up. Yeah. Um, all right. So we've browsed through the profile features. Let's look at what else do we have. Thank you everyone for the wishes. Thanks Suraj. Thanks Ajinkya. Thanks Sunny. Thanks Manish. There are two Surajas, but thanks guys. Yeah. So let's go to profile. So we've seen profile, right? Let's look at what else is there. There's something known as API token. Jetstream comes with Laravel Sanctum set up for us, wherein we can create API tokens for all our needs. So let me just create a full access token. Let's say full access, and let's create the token. It'll give me a token which I need to save securely. The only place I know to save my tokens is at this moment. I'm just using it using env. So I'm just going to do temp underscore token, and let's just save this here for the time being. All right, let's close this. And then we have the option to modify the permissions and delete the token. Yeah. Let's look at team settings. So let's click on team settings and let's see what we have here. All right. So by default, the account you create, you have a team which is associated with the same account. Yeah. And you have an option to add team members, and you have defined roles which you get out of the box. Yeah. So it's crazy so much you get out of the box. Let's see how you can create a new team. You have an option to create a new team. And let's say we can create a new team for let's say Doom. Right. Great, and it throws you to the dashboard. I'll show you. Each team will have its own separate dashboard. At the moment, I am in my team, and I see. Let me go to Doom. Right, we will not see any change that happens in the URL, but we do have options to configure the dashboard for different teams. Yeah, as in when we switch, you see nothing happen here, but once we modify a little bit of code, we will see how to modify teams. Apart from that, yeah, and we have logout, right? So let's do one thing. Let's try to look at the code, right? And let's try to modify certain components, right? So probably let's do the most basic one, right? Let's try to update the login view. Yeah, because I think that's the most common thing which people do when we have an auth scaffolding. We don't want let me just log out, right, and show you what it is. Right, so when you go to login, I probably don't want to see this. I want to see my custom UI screen. Yeah. And let's see. So Bhushan is asking, I want to ask, browser sessions will work with different session driver like file. I have not used Laravel 8 yet. I mean, I can try that if there's some time left, but I don't think there should be an issue with that. Yeah, so I don't think there should be an issue with changing the session. We can try it in the config, and we can, and I can answer your question, Bhushan. So first off, here's something which I did not like, right? So first time when I had set this up, we see this page, right? And I go to login. That was my instinct to go to login, but obviously I do not have an account set up. Right now, to go create an account, I probably have to press the browser's back button, which is a pattern which I don't like. So I thought, maybe what if we had a way to sort of register from the screen itself, right? So let's see how we can do that. So first off, let's go to the code, right? The views are stored in obviously resources views. Yeah, so you go to resources, you go to views, and you have auth, right? Let's go to login.blade and see what we see here. Let me remove this. All right, so we have this section right here where we see forgot your password, right? I probably want to add something like, are you not logged in yet, right? Or not a user register, right? So what we can do is we can probably copy this a tag and place it probably here. And what you can write is probably write something like not registered yet, something like this. And let's see how this looks like. So I've saved this code, and let's refresh the screen. There you go. It appears here, but then obviously it's cluttered, right? I don't like this cluttering. So let's do something. What is it using? It's using justify end. Okay. Um, I don't want justify end. I probably want a different tailwind class for for something that is spacing in between. Yeah. So so let me quickly go to tailwind and check what's the spacing for content. Yeah, justify content. That's what I want. And yeah, so the option is, I think it should be justify between. So let me just change this to justify between. And let's refresh. Better? Yeah. Great. So now this looks much better. Thanks, Santosh. So now obviously when we click here, nothing will happen, right? Because we've not configured the route. So by default, it's going to password.request. Now I need to find out what's the route for registration. Yeah. So you can do something along the lines of route list in your console. So let me do something like route list, PHP artisan route list. That's the command, right? So let's do that. And once you do that, you see all the routes in your application. And I just want to figure out where to register, right? So there you go. So the URI is register. Yeah. So all we need to do is, it's a named route. All we need to do is just replace this with register. Okay. And once you do that, you
Hey, Siddarth. Yes.
yeah, I think I refreshed the wrong screen by
No problem.
mistake.
No
Can you
problem.
just add me back?
So you just
Yeah.
have to share your screen, actually, I think.
Yeah. I'm sharing my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm back. Yeah, so I had to refresh the screen and I refreshed the wrong screen.
Yeah, no
Great.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back. So now when I click on not registered yet, what happens is, oh, it's throwing me to forgot password. Obviously, because I did not refresh the screen. So Command Shift R, and now when I click on it, it's taking me to register. Yeah, so that's good. That's what I wanted. Yeah, so we made a very quick modification to the login page. Now let's say you don't want to use the existing login page. Yeah. Um, let's say uh, let's say you don't want to use the existing login page and you want to sort of have your own login page, custom login view, right? So what do you do when you want your own custom login view? You'll have to open this file, known as Jetstream service provider. So let me go to Jetstream service provider. Stream service provider. It's an app providers. Okay, and in the boot method, we can use Fortify, and we can mention what's our view going to be, right? So we can do stuff like Fortify, and we have a static method known as login view, okay, which comes by default, right? And you can specify the name of the view. It accepts a closure actually, so let's just add a closure function. And let's return, we can return a view, or let me just uh, return some text for now, right? So I can write stuff like my custom UI or something, just so that I explain the point, right? Okay, great. So when you save this, it'll do some formatting. Great. So now when I go to login, yeah, it should it should probably, not look at this view. And okay, first thing, we have not imported Fortify. Yeah, and that's the whole problem. Let me see if I can, do it automatically. No, code actions are not available. No problem. I remember where Fortify is from. So for the namespace, you have to write use Laravel, Laravel Fortify, Fortify. Okay, well, once that's done, you can refresh this, and there you go. So um, you see my custom UI on the right. Yeah. Um, all right. Now this is just me outputting some text, right? So let's say if you have a view that has these values, all you can do is create a view and point the application. Yeah. So stuff like let's create a view, right? So let's open my resources folder, and I can be like, I can have a new view, let's new file. You can call it something like custom login.break.php. Right? And and once we have this, um, all I need to type at this point is probably custom UI, custom UI view. I will not be creating a new view here, right? And you get the idea, right? You can just change um, you can just point it to the file, you can point it to the view, and that should do the trick. So let's go back to our service provider, Jetstream service provider. Yeah. And what I can then do is I can return a view instead of the text, and I can then talk about where my view stays. So my view stays in my resources folder, and it's called custom-login. So I can type that, custom login. Yeah. Once you do that, it should reflect unexpected string. Okay, I just need to, yeah, I've not made my UI proper, so let's just wrap this in a div or something. And I don't think we need to open PHP tags. I mean, that's stupid. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So your custom UI view is done. Yeah. Next thing is, let's go to the registration URL, and let me first undo this whole thing. We don't want this to be a part of our code. So let me just comment this out. Yeah. Let's say you now want to update your registration view, and Fortify again has a static method. It's called register view, same like login view. So let me just uncomment this. Use the same thing, and just change the method. The method name is register view. All right. And once you do that, the same UI will be rendered when you register. Yeah, I mean, so far so good. Yeah. Oh, I see. I've missed a lot of chat. Okay, sessions hosted on different. All right. All right, great. So now let's look at. So now, since we've seen the custom UI registration and custom login implementation, we've just changed the views. We've not done anything else. Okay. Now let's look at some more things that we can customize. So how about password, right? So we registered. So let me just comment that out real quick. And so when you go to password, when you make a new account, you probably don't have strict password validation rules, right? So let me show you where password validation is present. Okay. Hold on. Yeah. So let's go to password. Let's just search password validation, password validation rules. So you see the first class, which is part of app actions Fortify. this is where you get to define your password rules, right? So essentially, if we look at all the available options in the documentation, by default, I think it allows you 6 characters, and you can set up very weak passwords. Let's say you want to, let's say you want to have like a strong password implementation in your Jetstream implementation. How do you do that, right? Um, so let me abstract this piece out. Okay. So we are passing a password object here. Let me abstract this out and let me call this like custom password rules, and let's new up the password class. Okay, let me show you what the password class looks like. um, it has okay, by default is 8. Yeah, I thought it was 6. And let's say I want to change the default thing from 8 to 10. Yeah. Requires uppercase is false, by the way. Numeric is also false. Special character is also false. So let's say I want to have these things as true, and probably I want to have minimum length of 10, for example. How do we do that? So since we've newed up a password object, what we can do is we can pass this object in our return. Okay. And we can call certain methods, right? So we can call things like length. There's a setter for length where I can be like, I want my new password to be, I don't know, it should be like 10 characters, right? Uh, what else? What else do we need? Okay, let's just do one more thing at this moment. And let's say I want it to require an uppercase, for example. So I can just call the setter for require uppercase. Uppercase. Okay. Now and once you've refreshed the registration, let me register a new user, okay? Let's call it dummy user. And dummy@user.com. And let me just try a weak ass password, right? So let me just type password here, okay? And show you what happens. And you enter the password. When you try to register, your validation should come up and be like, oh, it needs to be 10. It needs to be at least 10 characters and needs to contain an uppercase. Yeah. So let's do that, right? So we can do stuff like password and probably like 10. That's it. Do we need numeric? No, right? So I think this should do. Yeah. So we copy this, paste here, and voila, right? So we've seen how to modify a password, how to how to change basically the minimum requirements for the password when you're working with a Jetstream scaffolding. Yeah. Now let's say you want to change. You don't want to check if the user has a username or a password for logging in. You probably, let's say, have another field in your database that says, if there's a column that says, let me just open up SQL Pro. Hold on, SQL Pro, and let me open the database. I think we'll have more clarity. Yeah, so let me just open this up, and let's choose Rocket. Cancel. And let's say in our user table, what we want is we want to have a column that says is active, and we only want to allow the users that have the is active column as true to be authenticated. And so let's see how we can do that, right? While this loads up, let me show you where to write that logic. Yeah, you'll also have to write the logic in same Jetstream provider. So let me open Jetstream provider. Yeah, and how you do that is write your own custom authentication rules by calling the authenticate using static method. Okay, so I'm going to do stuff like Fortify. I'm going to use authenticate using. There you go. Good autocomplete. It also accepts a closure which accepts a request object. So function request dollar request request, and put a semicolon here, and let me start writing. Yeah. Okay, now what do we do next, right? First off, what generally people do is you see if you have a user, and what do? You call the user model, and then you write where, and then you check what? Then you check if the email exists. How do you check the email exists? You map it with request, um, request email, yeah, and then obviously since it's sent the collection, you get the first. um, that's it. And then this is how generally people do authentication, right? If the user exists, right? And what do you do then? Then you check the password, right? How do you check the password? You do hash check, hash a static method where you check, um, a request password, if it matches with user password. Yeah, that's basically authentication in a nutshell. You just check if the user exists and the password matches, right? What do you do then? Obviously, you return the user, right? That's your authentication. So you return your user, return a user. This is default. Like I've not changed anything yet. This is default. So if I just try to log in with my existing credentials, this should not have created any problems. So let's see if this still works. Let me log out and try to log in again. Yeah, give me a moment. Bhushan, yes, Sanctum is present. So Sanctum is by default available for API validation. And can we use Laravel Passport instead of Sanctum? Um, by default, Sanctum is enabled, but you can enable Passport as well. I'll show you how to do that. I see I'm quickly running out of time. I'll quickly finish this operation and then we'll try to go to answer the questions. So let me go to login. Let me enter my old password. There you go. This is my username. This was my password. Um, okay, argument one passed must be an instance of request. Login request given. Okay, I did not namespace things. I have not imported request. Okay, my bad. Great. So let's just use eliminate support facades. Best. I think that's. I'm just spitballing here. I think that's the right URL. Um, let's see. Yeah. Okay. Let me quickly check what's the right import for request. Import request Laravel. Request class. Okay, so it's illuminate HTTP request. My bad. So let's just change this here. One more extra use. Let's get rid of this. And the semicolon. Yeah. And once this is saved, we should be able to log in properly. Thanks, Santosh. Okay, and we've not imported a user. Use app/user model. There you go. Class app/user not found. Really? Do I not have a user model by default? Okay, okay, fine. Yeah, it's an okay. The namespace has changed. It's app slash models slash user. All right, my bad. That's yeah, it's in models. It is in models. It's fun when things break. We can always fix them. What's the new error that we're going to get? Hash. Oh my god. We don't have hash. Okay. So let's just go to Laravel and check where's hash. There you go. And hash exists where? Use hash Laravel. Best places to check Stack Overflow. Uh, 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 uh. All right, so it's an illuminate support facades hash. This is where it is, right? So let's import hash as well. And once this is done, I hope we don't get any more errors. Yes, I think my next time, there you go, right? So finally, uh, there you go. Finally, oh, Santosh has been giving great correct answers. Yeah, I mean, PHP Storm would have helped really well. There you go. So we have our authentication. I have to open up my authenticator and enter my codes 042 and 42. And I should then get access to my app. There you go. Finally, right? So now let's write some real code, right? So now since we've authenticated our user like this, right? What if I want to check more things, right? So here I'm just checking if the user has, let's say, exists or not, right? But what if I also want to check stuff like, if $user, you know, um, have stuff like user is underscore active. Maybe if it's true, right? That's when I want the user to log in, right? So what we can do is we can just pass this if the user exists and if it's active, that's when I want the user to be able to log in, right? Uh, so what we can do here is let's quickly open up our database, right? So we can do MySQL, sudo NSP, my password, and let me use Rocket as my database. And let me do show tables. I hope user table is there. It's there. Okay. And let's just select star from users. We should see two users basically. Okay, bad idea to do it here. And let's do this again. Okay, so we have two users. Please bear with the formatting. My user and then there's a dummy user, right? Okay. So now what we want to do is we want a column to be present, which is known as is active, right? And okay, SQL Pro is having some issues. I'm going to use table plus. And edit connection. Oh, there's an update, right? Escape. Local. Ah, amazing. Okay, so now we want to look at the users table. Okay, we want to add one more column. Let's go to structure and let's add another column. Okay, column, and I want to call it is underscore active. Um, It's going to be, let's say, Boolean. I don't care is nullable, yes, right? There you go. So I've added the column, and let's go to data, and let's make it true for just me. Okay, fine. I've added this. Now I need to save it. Format it, right? Okay, it's Command S. Yeah, I keep forgetting it. Okay. Oh yeah, I could have used Tinker. I could have used Tinker. Okay, so I have is active. Now let me just set is active for me and not set it for the other one, right? So I'm going to set it for me and not for the other one and save this. It's done, right? So ideally now only I should be able to log in and the other person should not be able to log in. Yeah. So I've logged out. Let me try to log in by myself. Right, I'm able to log in. Yeah. 85 There you go. I was able to log in because it's true for me. And let's try it. Let's try for the dummy user. What's the email? dummy@user.com. Okay. And let's just enter a dummy password because it's not going to succeed any which ways, right? Credentials do not match. That's the standard output that we got, right? But essentially, it would not have worked because we have mentioned that you should only return it if it is active. Obviously there's more to it. You can write more code and modify your authentication mechanism and logic by this place, but I think that's all the time that we have. I'll just take 1 quick minute to show you where all the configurations exist and where what are the important files and folders, right? So command B. So once you go to config, an important file to look at is jetstream.php. Yeah, this is the place where you can enable and disable certain features. So if you just comment this out, profile photos will go away. If you comment this out, APIs will go away. Yeah. And when you go to Fortify, um, here is a section where you can define what should happen after your user is logged in, right? So this is the home section, right? So route service provider. If you go to route service provider, home is default to dashboard. Let's say after logging in, you want to throw him to some other view, you can change that here. Yeah. And what else? Middleware is web, that's fine. Email verification I have switched off. I did not turn it on by default. If you just uncomment this, your emails will be verified, right? Most of your code relies in the action directory. Yeah, create new user, password validation, all of it relies in the action directory under Fortify, right? Under Jetstream, you have team management, right? I guess that's all the time I have for now. I think I've overshot my Q&A period, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And I would want to hand it off to Jigar for our next speaker and not eat their time.
And no problem, Siddarth. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge on Jetstream. This will definitely be helpful to all of us. Thanks a lot. Yes, in the interest of time, I will move on to next speaker. That is Mohammed Mudassir. He has been working with Laravel since version 4 of it. He is currently working with Fordel Network as software architect. Contributing to open source technology is one of his hobby. So, hi Mudassir, over to you. You are on mute, Mudassir.
And right now, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, Jigar. Thanks a lot, Siddarth, for the beautiful session. And let's dive quickly on how we can see that DDD and what is the DDD principles and all those things which people are really waiting for. Okay, the first thing we will gonna talk about is what exactly the DTD is and why we should prefer it and what it makes it much better. So first we need to analyze the scenario where we are building a product, and that product is something which we need to constantly improve it, and we are in a stage where we need to go into more flexibility in terms of team, in terms of new people joining, and there are many things goes around in the team. So keeping everything in the mind, DDD is from last 18 or 19, maybe somewhere around 20 years. It has been evolved, and a lot of things has been added to um, DDD, and many things has been enhanced in terms of like understanding. But the main principle and main things has been set. Um, for example, principles have been set really, really well, and I would like to discuss about those principles. And first I would like to ask you some question, which will be like why I should start using DDD, and why what is DDD first of all. So basically we need to think DDD as isolating of a business logic. And there is a problem where when we expand in a team and we are not able to handle the situation with the teams as how it is going on. So the main reason to understand that how it's add those things to us. And when we see domain is a set of a business language, which I can say that we isolate it and then we move accordingly. So first thing, the principle of DDD is you need to start thinking as a product owner, that how product owners think. You are a coder, you are developing some products and you are designing the code. But if you are not getting the sense that how product owner is pursuing the business and how they think it, it would be really difficult for a coder to manage and organize its code. So first thing, we need to see that we are a product owner of our own code. And the better you get the clarity, the better you ask the question, the better you are able to understand that what can be done in the software and what can be improved in it and how team can manage it. So first thing, we need to analyze that we should start thinking as a product owner. And then understanding is the key. So if you understand the code, you understand the business logic, you can explain that business logic in your code readers to your code readers. And when you start writing the code, it is really important that the code is much understandable to the community as much as possible. Otherwise, if we start hashing and doing some stuffs which is not able to understand by other, then it will be a really big problem in communication. So okay, yeah, that does not mean you will making a long functions and you will be like hip hopping and doing things which are not been there. So understanding is the key, and let's move forward with another slide. Is like you just learn DDD important principle. Yeah, if you understand the key, if you understand the logic, and you are able to communicate with that the code user, you have understand the ubiquitous language and domain. So the better you express yourself into the code, you are able to communicate with the coder, and as well as you are able to grab how the domain and how the product owners are able to understand the domain, understand the business. So in short, ubiquitous language is understanding and communicating it better. So now let's go dive deep in what is domain specifically. Let's remove driven design and let's start it thinking what exactly the domain stands for here. So to isolate the business segment, yes, of course, we need to isolate a big portion of business segments into structural form, and that can be done in in many ways. So we will going to go in those ways, and we will going to understand that how we can solve these problems and how we can see that we will be organizing our code. So to isolate the business segment is the thing which we say to our product owners. So product owners will going to say you that we want to build a new feature, and this will be this and that, and then those feature needs to be in a communicating with third party APIs or third party providers in the sense, for example, payment providers or anything else. So those kind of things needs to be get isolated. In jargon words, when we talk in our communication language as a coder language, it is a set of features which needs to be performed independently. So we are isolating the domain entirely. Now let's see that how this domains go into as a subdomain and how other things get into the picture. So if I see that why we need to isolate the set domains segments, this is a really good question when we are designing a particular part, because we are not able to take a decision that what's need to be isolated in a business segment and what's not, and what will be going to the core feature. So for this, we need to analyze and we need to see that um, how we need to proceed to the domain, and we need to I will be going to give you a quick example right now, and we need to think that how we are going to proceed with it. So right now we see that there are buildings and there are some gardens, and we see that it's a kind of a resort. So let's imagine we are building a resort, and the resort is working as a chain. So for here we see that this is a resort, and this is another resort, and this is also another resort. So these three resorts are working independently. So now if we analyze the domain is specifically, it sets that we are doing and we are building a resort network. So let's make and let's think a project in that way and start talk to our product owner and how they think that can be done. So let's go into the detail of this domain. And what we see is we need to imagine. We need, for example, we run multiple resort which provides an online schedule app for our premium members and managers to book the date at any given time. We are also using multiple service providers and processing bookings on that. Then we also have and we also send goodies to our premium members. So this is an example which I'm right now trying to convey and imagine that we are trying to build a product for a resort network, and they came to us and they specified the requirements, and this is the requirement they see fit for us to explain. So now as a coder, as a owner of the coding team, we also need to see that how we can specify this, and we also need to start questioning the product owners. For example, right now, product owner has explained that there are multiple payment providers. So we also need to go how many multiple payment providers will be there. So for example, it will be Stripe or PayPal or CC Avenue or anything else which can be there. So these kind of question needs to be asked, and we need to get as much information as possible. Once we get those information, we also need to look for the possibility, and we call it as event storming. So there is a whole new session on this, that where every developer sits and including product owners, and they start putting and mapping things that where it will be going to do it. And this is the first stage of designing a domain. So never rush to code. First of all, you need to understand that what you are going to deliver, and if you are able to see it, and visualize it, that if you are not able to grab the good advantage, good knowledge of this domain, then you will not be able to deliver a better product. So it is really really important to ask question to product owners and see the multiple possibilities and think towards it. So once we analyze it, we need to see that how many domains can we fit in. For example, this is a business. A resort network is a business. Now this business need to be divided into multiple domains which can be work as an independent team, and those team will be just specifically working on that domain. And right now we need to see that how we can do it. So I'll give you 2 minutes to think about this, that how many domains can be built here, that how many things can need to be isolated, and what steps we need to do on doing that. I will be going to give you 2 minutes to think, and then we can um, start this session, continue this session, I mean. Okay, I'm also checking comments on YouTube just to see whether we are able to see that domains. So guys, think of how many domains can be built here. Think by just reading a statement, it is given by the product owner. We run multiple resort networks, provide all online schedule app for our premium members.
Can I guess?
Yes.
Uh, uh, will it be only one, that is resort?
Okay. Uh, okay. So it can be multiple, and right now you have said it one. So it needs to be more than one because domain is isolating the business portion of a business. So the purpose of giving this is we need to think that how many business logics can be isolated and work around, because we are working with a, for example, we are working with a really big team where we have millions of users, and those users are getting, for right now I've just given a three. So if I go back here, I have given the three networks, a three resort as a network, but there is a multiple networks going on, and this is on a particular island. There can be any other island and in any other city. So we need to also think that those also need to be considered. So let's go on another part and see what we can extract from it. So first, identifying the domains, the key part from the, when product owners has given us in the information, it is really important for us to know how we can divide it and how we can say, think of how it can go on. So first and foremost, what we saw from this one is was like online scheduling app of our premium members. We are able to understand that there are members there. The members can be premium, the members can be a normal member, and the members can be other kind of a members. So we think that there is a possibility of members to be isolated, and that needs to be isolated somewhere. And we also see that, and the managers to book the date of any given time. So it is like a booking. So we need to also see that there is a booking system should go on fluently with a scheduling app, and that should also work independently, because there is a multiple team can be defined, and this is just an example which I'm trying to convey. And the theme, this domain will going to go expand by themselves. So we are using multiple payment providers. There are multiple. So we also need to see that those also get communicated with the booking and things work. We also have the marketing department, which we send the goodies and to our premium members. That means that there is something which also need to be taken care of. So when we identify domain, the first thing we need to see the application domain. So what stays in the applications domain and what can be extracted from the application domain. The business is simple. Businesses, we need to develop a networking module, networking business for resort. And now I see that there is an application domain. We, what we did is user management and promotional subdomains. We see that there is a possibility of marketing and goodies, so we keep all those information into application domain. And then what we see is the booking domain can also work independently, and it's need to be identified by its own microservice or own stage, and everything will be like not tightly coupled with each other. So when we define domains, we also need to take care of those domains are not dependent on each other. And if they are dependent on each other, then they are using a contextual bounding, and that feature I will be going to explain you later. And those communication layers goes on to reduce the dependency as much as possible. So if my booking goes down, but still user be able to manage and see their um, things going on, and marketing people will be able to send goodies to their application, to their premium members. So those things help us to organize our code better, and the booking team will be only responsible to do the booking part. And it does not mean that the one team cannot be assigned to multiple domains. It can be assigned to multiple domains, but right now we are focusing on one single domain where we see that every team is managing their own domain. So we also see the payment domains. Okay, now this is a debatable point here, that payment domains can be isolated or cannot be isolated. It can be part of application domain, but it is a really um, team decision. For example, if I be in a team, then I would like to keep it as payment as much flexible as possible, because right now we have a booking domain. It is also possible we come across with something different, and we are not able to featureize right now, but it is possible. And when it comes, and if it is tightly coupled with application domain, then we are making it more dependent um, on the payment method, not payment method, but payment domain. Okay, so let's move on. Right now, we have identified this application domain, booking domain, and payment domain. And now we need to see that how we can put this into working. So first, I would like to clear this. We have identified domain, but we also need to see that it is not for the small projects. If we are using domain-driven design for the small project, then it is over engineering, that's for sure. Because right now we don't know. Uh, when we start at small scale, it is really important for us to build something which we can give to our which we can communicate to our owners, um, product owners, or our customers or clients. So yeah, it is like a hammer to press a button. You're using domain-driven design too extensively just for a small project. So I'm not recommending for small project. Yes, the complexities arise on the small project, but that can be handled into core application that not need to be segregated, and that don't require business segregation at all. So how to start small projects keeping future full scale implementation of domain driven design in mind. So we are as a small project, we think that we want to develop something, and we see that on the future part it is going to happen in this case. And when we started, it is really hard for us to identify those things at the time. But when we have a really good idea, and we see, for example, this resort network part, we see that there is an opportunity which needs to be extracted, and we will be going to have it. So right now we have assumed that there is already everything in place, and the team is hired to develop this product. And right now we see that we need to develop it. So for now, let's imagine that we are doing it for a small scale project, and how we will going to identify it. So identify the potential domains. We already did that. Keep those domains independent as much as possible. This is really important. So once we identify those domain, we do not want to keep it concentrated or dependent on each other. And caution, in database full scale normalization, we will keep your domain features couple for eternity. So this is some advice which I'm trying to give to small projects when they think that they need to develop, and they need to have some sort of a domain design implemented on place, because they will be going to expand really soon. So they can think of this. If they start keeping this advice, I'm sure that they will be able to extract domains from their core application very soon. So now let's go to Laravel application and see how we can segregate those code into our own application. So I have right now altered Laravel specifically for domain-driven design. What you can see is I have put all the things which is like bootstrap, config, database routes, and storage into a kernel specific class, which is an application domain specific class. And right now you can see that we have app, booking, and payment, which is our domain. App, booking, and payment is you can see that they are having their own configuration, they're having their own database, They are also having their own service provider routes and everything, so they are also communicating with each other here. So let's see how we can go further and organize our code by getting those logic into picture. So right now we need to focus on one domain specifically. If I start talking about the booking and then I start talking about the payment, then it will be difficult for us to grab how things will going to work. So in this case, let's go with the payment part because I see that you guys will be going to enjoy this. And yeah, I have already done some homework such as adding payment like PayPal and Stripe. So I have organized this code in a way where um, to the degree of domain, you can do it and you can alter Laravel as much as possible if you're able to understand how kernels work and how their application itself inside it work. So when we start working with DDD, it is really, really important for us to also know what is object value. This is also something which people make big mistakes. So they try to compare it with DTO. It is like we transfer the information from one layer to another, which value objects do it. But there is a really key thing which our value objects is must need to follow, and which is like objects values are immutable. It once it has been instantiated, it cannot be changed at all. And 99.99% in cases you will not be going to change it, and you will be going to keep it as it is. I will be going to give you a scenario that how we will going to use object value inside the domain, which is the payment right now, and how we will going to segregate those. They get transferred from different layers within a domain. Yes, that's true. It is going to be transferred from one place to another, but it will be inside the domain, not outside the domain. So there will be a layer when we start modeling our domain. The modeling is also a concept of domain-driven design. We will be covering up that later, and I'll be going to show you some sample codes for Laravel where you can able to understand that how this domain will be going to work and how the transaction should be going to happen. So the key thing of object value should always be remember that outside the domain, no class can go outside from it or can be utilized in this. So I cannot use the Stripe class in the app. It should not happen. If I want to do it, for example, in the app or in the booking, I need to do it with an interface. And what is that interface? I will be going to explain it later. So let's go to object value. And now the thing is you need to consider what can be an object value. When we do a payment in domain, the object value here is immutable. And here object value will be the amount. So for example, if I create a 50 rupees note, that the value should not be get changed. The value will be always 50 rupees. If it is getting transferred in any layer of the domain, in subdomains, then it should not be get changed. So it will always be going to say be the same. And right now we should not mix models with entities. So when I say models in Laravel, we know we are talking about the connectivity to the database where we idealize the table and we communicate it through it. So we call it as models. But when it comes to domain-driven design, we call it as entities. But when we say models in domain-driven design, it means something different. So domain modeling is a concept itself in domain-driven design, which specifically emphasize and give us the leverage to how to idealize the feature, how the feature will be going to work. So now I'll be going to give you an example of a feature and we'll be going to go into detail of that. So payment providers is extracted and put it into the, as you can see here, keep separate database. Yes, this is really, really important. When you are designing, you need to create a separate database for payment providers. Similarly, it needs to go for the booking, and that's how it works. And as a Laravel developer, you should always think that Laravel model and domain models are two different things. They are talking of two different perspective. So this is an example I got from Domain Driven Design Quickly book. It gives a layer that how inside we should communicate within the domain, and it's really self-explicit. And as you can see that muted it is wrong. That domain is not responsible for the smart UI, but isolating domain with the layer architecture is more important than how object value is expressed. We need to express our model with object value, and here model means with the domain-driven design model, domain modeling I'm talking about, which is a set of feature which needs to be undertaken and needs to be modelized and idealized at how it will be going to perform. Express model with entities or object values and access these entities with repository design pattern. We already know about this. There is also aggregating with things for using for stuff for example statistics and all those stuff. There are many examples which we can go into detail what aggregator is, but right now let's focus on um, how we can use this kind of features into Laravel. So factories and all those stuffs we are well aware of how the factories design patterns works, encapsulating. So this is a really good book. I would recommend to read the domain driven design quickly. It's uh, directly talk on the core part of domains, and it does not go into details of on which situations, on which complexity, how things need to be handled. So for that you need to read Eric Evans' book, and he is the author of the domain driven design. So let's imagine a scenario here where we are inside the payments and payments domain, and we want to perform a specific set of feature. And what we see here is we are going to create transactions, and that transaction should be visualized. So what we see, we created a new transaction with a new payment provider, that this transaction will be going to happen with this payment provider. We found that on which user this transaction needs to be performed, and for that we name it as customer, and we created an amount which needs to happen, and we have also passed the currency that needs to be we need to perform on that task on that amount specifically. So right now here you can see that I'm explicitly writing everything as if I'm talking to my domain driven talking to my product owner, and I'm doing that transaction. I'm charging a certain amount. For example, I'm charging a certain amount to a customer and on the given transaction, and we get the return as a payment. And if something goes wrong, if something's happen wrong, we'll be catching an exception of payment failed, and then we're going to see it. So now this is an example that how we should communicate with our inside layers, and this is a set of feature that right now we are visualizing, and we are thinking that we need to perform a certain task. And let's go inside the class. What we see here is when I give you an example of transaction, how things are going on. So I have defined a contract, which is an interface. And when I say interface in this context, it means like I'm not talking about domain-driven design interface. This interface is specifically for the class. So I can swap any payment provider regardless, be it Stripe or be it any payment provider, which we can add later. And I'm performing a task of payment provider charge in a certain amount from the given user and execute it. And if this fail, we'll be going to get an exception. And if everything goes fine, then we will be firing an event to send invoice to the given user. And what we will be going to return is the model, which is an entity from this transaction happening. So basically, I kept it as simple as possible, and I'm trying to convey to my code reader that everything is going in the certain direction. So this needs to be remembered, and never use domain specific class outside that domain. This is a really, really important point which everybody needs to know. I cannot use invoice, send invoice, which is in the events outside the domain, which is booking or app. It needs to be used inside the domain. And if app wants to send an invoice, it will be going to use an interface as a communication layer, and then it will be going to enter into this domain, and then it will be going to perform a certain task. So yeah, that's it. We really need to remember this. So let's talk about interface more. What we think about interface. So when we come to interface, we think of an APIs, or we think of a class. In this case, we can say that Facades is working as an interface where we are going directly into, um, how can I say, a package in Laravel, and that package is getting going into it directly, and we are communicating with that package by performing a certain task. So Facade is doing that job for us. So we can count Facade as an interface, but can we create a Facade in a domain? That's another question. And yes, we can create it, but we should not do it inside the domain. It should go into the app, the facade which we create, which we call it as interface. If we think of doing it and not putting it as a microservice layer, right now just communicating with it for the time being, we are imagining that we are working on a small scale and we don't need to create a microservice and do it by that. So we can you create a facade inside the app, and that facade will be going to communicate with the payment. The purpose of putting facade in the app is futuristic. Let's be clear here. We can put it in payment. Why we are putting in app? So the clear answer for here is in the future we are thinking to isolate our code as much as possible. And right now we have not isolated it. We have put it in one single big repository. And if it is in a single repository, it has not been isolated and it is working as a package or a library. It is not a really domain. So it's need to be extracted and work independently as much as possible. So once we do that, we need to go inside the domain of app or booking and start finding everything that needs to be replaced by the facade which is corresponding to the payment, and that will become a hectic job. But what if it is in the app folder specifically itself, and if it is in there and we are communicating and we can just bypass it by binding it to a service provider with a microservice, so it can be switched when it's been attached to a service, when it's been attached to a container, it can be switched. But if we are using directly facades, which sits inside the payment domain and getting access from the app, it will be really difficult for us to find all the specific areas and remove it and replace it. So ideally, I really prefer to access it with the application container, IOC container, and you can do it by whatever means you want it. But that I'm just making it clear that it's need to sit inside the app. So there will be a booking facade for which will be in app, and there will be a booking facade for payment. And in the domain driven design, we call it as interface. An interface can be of can be an API call, or it can be a single class. This needs to be remembered. And just a quick note I'm bringing here is about the about how things are happen when it works to microservice layer. So we don't need to expose payment providers to the main API. For example, there should not be API. For example, payment dot resortnetwork.com. Okay, this will be an endpoint for the API. This does not mean we need to expose it. Our domain should be able to communicate internally. Okay, so I have a VPC, and in that VPC I have a cluster, and in that cluster I have microservice hosted, and depending on the region, I'm putting all these clusters on a specific region, and these codes are been deployed everywhere. For example, payments is deployed on 10 different cluster. Now when I communicate by being in Europe, I communicate it to the payment API. I'll be going via the core domain and I'm performing a task there. then our core domain will be going to communicate with payment API, and that will be going to do it, and that will not be exposed to all of us. So the point I bring it here is to really remember that we don't need authentication to happen on payment. We can directly access it because it has been isolated in a cluster. And just to give a quick brief, what is cluster? So it is a set of servers running together and performing a set of patterns or features needs to be happening. So for example, when I use Kubernetes, I'm designing a cluster which has resources. Everything in everything in Kubernetes has been defined as resources, and everything has been communicating microservice pattern, and all those things are going inside accordingly. I will not be going to talk Kubernetes for now because it does a really big concept altogether and it will require a separate session for it. Just I'm giving an example that how things are isolated on the region, and I'm in Europe and you are in India. So there will be another cluster which you are going to communicate and everything is stored there. And this is how the database will also be going to be segregated with their own database happening. And this is how the things will be going with the low latency part when it's come to where we need to be really fast and needs to be really communicating with thousands and thousands of concurrent user. We come across with this kind of a strategy. Putting multiple database, yes, it can be one database which is communicating from two different regions. This is also possible. You can do it depending on the logic, which how you will be going to proceed to solve it. That totally depends on the team, the strength of it, and then how it will be going to perform. So this is really key thing that I'm just keeping everything open, and I'm not keeping a rule that okay, if it is you are in a region that cannot be communicating with other region database. It can be happening depending on the logic, depending on the business. So we also need to mold those principles on depending how and what we are going to solve. So let's go deep into principles again. And this is a really good thing, man. I'm talking to everyone. It's like when I talk to a single developer or a couple of developers, I really think that principles are being treated as like God have said this. It cannot be altered or it cannot be think. And this is a really thing which needs to be considered. So principle can be bent. This is a really important thing which everyone should remember. Because if you are not bending principle dependent on what feature you are going to accomplish, it is possible that you are going to go into a technical depth, and technical depth is a concept, the concept which really explain that how the technicality and dependency on a developer increase because he know too much of about the product and other developers don't know. So if that developer think of resigning or moving to something um, out of the company, so it will be really difficult for team specifically that how many identify how many things he knows about it. So those kind of things happens, and those principles are strictly for example, when I talk about solid principle, that is a really core principle needs to be followed, and yes, it's need to be happening, but it also does not mean that it cannot be bent. Okay, there can be an area where you can save some information which is not dependent, which is not reflecting directly to the class, but that has been a metadata which has been saved. But some can argue that this class is not responsible to save that data, and why it is doing so. Then we need to see that what we are going to accomplish, what feature we are thinking to accomplish. Is it really important for us? For example, we want to enhance our performance and instantiating a new class and new dependency and all those things is happening. And we see that if it is adding a processing time, it is better to save those information as a metadata itself in a class which is not responsible for that data. Then yes, we can compromise on that. But compromising on specifically performance and business logic will be a really big problem, because if we are um, in a situation where we think that it cannot be bent, then it will be a problem for us to identify it in near future. And that the main idea is business is sufficing the development team, not the development team is sufficing the business. Because if we are compromising with the performance, we are compromising with the business and we are compromising with the revenue. So these principles are really important for us, but it should be noted that it should has a space where it can be bent, not altogether thrown, but it can be bent. And the feature which is mostly ignored, or I can say that um, the domain-driven design is highly discouraging that feature. Principle is somewhat I can say as a dry principle. So when it's come to database, and if you are tightly coupling everything into it, and you are thinking that repeating everything is will be a problem, then you are tightly coupling, and it will be that you need to communicate with many other tables and get those information, and by the time you're doing it and joining it, it will cost you some sort of a performance or money, or it can be anything. So this is something which we need to think of. And there is one more thing which I would like to add here in this slide. When we go object values, I said that it's immutable. Okay, yeah, 99.99% time you will not be going to find the scenario where you need to mutate it. But I have been in design community, and I have seen that people are coming with the scenario that they want, there is no other option to mutate them. So we need to find an alternative that on that scenario. So for example, if you need to mutate it, you can pass a new object altogether by mutating it, and you are doing that mutation happening into a new object. This is just an example I'm giving it here. But you will always, or in 99% cases, you will not be finding it mutating it, but there is a possibility you will find it. So these principles should be think as really mandatory to be followed. But when you find something which needs to be changed, it is really important for us to keep the space for us to be bent to implement those things. So this is something which I would like to really emphasize on, because I have worked with people and they really come across with the things where with an argument that no, this needs to be done this way because we are violating or this kind of a principle, and we also need to see other parts as well. So let's talk about some references. So as this is just a glimpse, to be clear, I have not gone into a detail. For example, if I start talking about domain entirely, it will take me too much time for explaining you that what kind of a specification requires for us to go and build a domain. And there is a concept of domain modeling which I have not gone into really detail. Context bounding, for example, to bounding the context. For example, there are two domains, we are interlinked with each other and they're dependent on each other. Then we need to find a way that the particular feature, where the particular feature will be going into which domain. So this is really important, contextual bounding, and how you can solve those kind of an issue is also something which you can research on the given reference. So AlphaGo is a really quick view on YouTube. It's a really good channel. I really like it, and sometime I also recommend to my friends a lot. So that's why I thought to share it. And if you really want to understand domain-driven design, I would say that Eric Evans, the author of this entire DDD, is doing best to explaining this part. He really explained with multiple scenarios, and he gives you that how we need to think on it. But I have really covered a lot of part of that, how the mindset a developer should have it, so that he can communicate really effectively with the product owner. Also, there is a book which I have shared the reference of this one. So when it's come to designing and modeling the part, this is the reference which is taken from domain-driven design quickly. This is the book. Sorry. And the fourth one is the domain design language. Okay, so you want to go for any event happening, and people are joining it. It's really costly. I can say you that it will around for Indian, I will be like 2 to 3 lakh rupees it will cost just to take a ticket, but it is worth to have and to understand those concepts really quickly, because when we are working in a really big scale, we are really bound to think on a certain way, and we need to be more agile in terms of our coding. So on that part, domainlanguage.com/ttd is a good resource for having an event. You can find other books as well there, and I would really recommend these four as a starting point to understand it really in depth. So that's it from my side. Thank you. You can follow me on YouTube, not YouTube. Um, you can follow me on GitHub, and you can also check out my website. So if you have any question, I'm ready to take question. I have, let's see, we have 10 minutes.
Hey,
Okay, so how will be a scheduling app will be a domain. So scheduling app, I would really, so first thing you need to start questioning your product owner. So when I say scheduling app, what kind of scheduling feature you are going to provide, and what do you think that it can be done or cannot be done, or and what do you mean by scheduling? Is it just that needs to happen on a specific time, or it's need to be reoccurring? And these kind of things needs to be a model and put it into event sourcing. So there is a really good concept how to extract information from the product owners. We call it event sourcing. Um, you can check out that event storming. Sorry, I made a mistake. Event storming. Yeah, you can check out that. I will be having quite a question, and I would really recommend you to, if you are working on a small scale, let's put it into something in one application as a domain. Okay, MD, what is the key thing? Oh, Bhushan should be seen and proceed with domain. Most we start project be small at initial phase when we can start segregating things in a domain design. Yeah, this is a really good question, and thank you, Bhushan, to getting it back. So basically, when we see that happening, so when to start? This is something which you need to ask, that when the team is getting increased. So, so if team is like, now we need to scale, we need to go more robust, we need to tackle this region and that region, and for that, product owner comes to you and say, okay, our people are complaining that the website is slow because of, I don't know, whatever reason is there, they are not able to schedule the app or anything like that. So this is the symptoms which you see that, okay, you need to start thinking in a microservice. And microservice is a concept inside the domain-driven design itself. When I talk about domain, every domain needs to communicate with its own microservice. So yes, and then you identify, okay, now this is a time to start segregating it. So you need to be really quick at the time to identify those domain. And at the start, as I've given an example, that you should start thinking it from the first point of view, that you should organize your code in a way where it can be segregated. You can find it as package. For example, you can start it as package or a library. You put it and specifically design it, and then you can start incrementally thinking, okay, now it is time to make it a domain. Then you can start doing it, and then you can start refactoring the code altogether. Okay, so what is next? Can you share an example where did you help prevent a problem at workspace or with a project? Okay, actually, I'm working in a company, for example, around 8 years now. And when I came across with domain design when I was in Turkey, working with Insider, so they were getting millions of notification. They need to send millions of notification in a fraction of seconds. And how they manage it's really beautiful and it's really eloquent. The team is really beautiful, and you can go into and see that how they are thriving to improve, and you will find a really challenging pace at that time. So you yourself define it. So help prevent a problem at a workspace, example where domain driven design or with a project. I would like to understand from you first that what do you mean by workspace, and if you're talking about the company and if you're specific for that, then I would really suggest that it's need to be thinking of our own, that okay, there is a software architect people who needs to tackle such situation, and that's how it goes. And regarding sharing an example, I have given an insider as an example. Useinsider.com is their website, and I was the first person who initiated this domain design at the time, and I started taking session there. And you can it's a growth management platform. It is a really big product, and I have explained that how domain design can be worked. It was like 3 years ago something. So 2.5 years ago, maybe somewhere around. So the team started evolving and developing, and then I don't know how the pace is right now there because I moved to Netherlands. Then I think they are performing good. So you can see this as an example, and I don't know about any other example because I have not implemented domain design after that any company. Can we call compose a package domain? Oh, Bhushan, you really ask beautiful questions. So basically, packages are the starting point of something which needs to be extracted. It needs to be shared. It needs to be maintained. So this needs to be happen. So once you start developing a package, you yourself is giving you an idea that this needs to be extracted and should be helped or should be managed by its own microservice. You will encounter that in near future, because packages are pre-matured, I think, for the domain design. But yes, you will be going to encounter those. Anything else questions we have? Where I can segregate things in package. Is it the same? And if not, what is difference? What, okay. Segregating in packages. Segregating things inside segregating in packages. I would say that it, it depends that how you are proceeding with the business logic, because everything comes into the business logic, how you are going to handle it. And you need to think as a product owner. So as a product owner, what the product owners can think. So in the project owner, in the segregation, the segregations happen, and the segregation can be happen in a subdomains as well. So those segregations can happen in the domain. So for example, subdomain is a part of a domain, and it's also a concept of domain which is also happening it. So I think that's it. I can, if you have any other question, you can mail me and ask me there.
Hey, thanks, Mudassir. That was a really good session. And yes, Bhushan here has asked pretty good questions here. Even I got to learn many new things from this session. Thanks a lot. I was completely unaware of this domain-driven design, and I have learned a lot. Yeah, yeah, you are awesome
Okay.
for this session. Yeah, same thing from my end.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
So
thank you so much.
yeah,
Let's
and
see.
thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you next month at the same platform. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.